Sage Wanderer here, coming at you from Shawnee, Oklahoma. So I wanted to give you a proof of life video and just catch you up on some of the things that are going on with me. So I haven't made a video in a really long time, and part of it is I'm going through a pretty major change in goals, in philosophies, in what it is I'm actually trying to do with my life. And so I thought I would make this video to kind of hint towards what I'm working on next, and also to get you guys to kind of say some prayers for me, okay? Because once again, I feel like God's asking me to do a difficult thing. And I struggle with doing difficult things for God. I do. I mean, eventually I always do them. I do. But yeah, I mean, well, he wouldn't ask us to do something that we couldn't accomplish, right? What God ordains, he sustains. So I guess I'm asking you all for patience while I work on some things. But the bottom line is this. Clearly you can tell God's preparing me for something. I'm no longer even recognizable as my former self. I'm 185 pounds of pretty much toned, cut, ready to rumble. I can pretty much do everything but run, and I haven't really tried running much. I still have the remnants of a bad knee, but I'm getting this overall total realignment of health and of ability. And yeah, it wouldn't jump on me right now. I wouldn't tangle with this old guy right now. I'm as good as I ever was, to tell you the truth. And that's had the wheels spinning, because it feels like God's preparing me for something, and part of me thinks he's preparing me for this war that's coming. And he is. However, I don't believe I'm called to the physical battle. I don't know. One might argue differently, because it seems like I'm being prepared for a physical battle. I feel capable of waging war. I do. Physically. I mean, as much as anybody my age could. But I've come to the understanding. There's been a revelation that I in particular, I'm not saying what the rest of you do, but I in particular have to take the approach that we battle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities and powers in high places. And that, yes, I have physical abilities, and yes, I'm teaching you guys things, and yes, I can handle myself. But I'm most feared by the kingdom of darkness for my non-physical spiritual attributes and my spiritual accomplishments. And I kicked dirt in the devil's face for years and years as a pastor and as a minister and as an evangelist. The reason I say that this is a hard path that I feel like God's put me on is because the people that will be opposing me will not be the traditional enemy. I know this mission, if I choose to accept it, and I'm just having to ease into it. I'm having to wrap my brain around this. Plus, I don't know exactly what it is and how it's going to look. But the bottom line is, the people that will oppose me will be you, my Christian viewers, my evangelical Christian faithful will be the ones who will be fighting me. And it's because I will be trying to build something in the name of God that is unrecognizable to you. And it's because you're a part of the church. But I'm going to use your own dispensational doctrine against you. The history of the church has been, for the past 2,000 years, in essentially what's known as the church age. You had the apostolic age, and now you have the church age, okay? And when you were dealing with the church age, there were rules, methods, goals. The time of the church age is over. I am here to announce to the world, as one of many witnesses who will now rise for this end time occasion, to inform you that the church age is over and the underground end time church is rising. This church will be more militant. It will be less passive. It will be less public. It will be an underground church. And part of this is that true Christians are already being forced underground. And it's just going to get worse. The other part of it is this. We aren't trying in the end time church to build community. We are not trying in the end time church even to build family. We in the end time church are not trying to build anything. This is not a building mission. The church age is over. This is not a building mission. This is not a rising up mission. This is a rescue mission. This is a lifeboat mission. This is a mission to find the lost and wandering and draw them in before the end of time. While there is still time to pull them in, while there's still time, we must make them choose. We must make them choose God. This is a battle between good and evil. It will be fought in the street, but it will be fought in the prayer circles too. It will be fought in the spiritual realm and the physical realm. And I'm being called up for a spiritual fight. Even though God is quickening my mortal body, He's giving me the strength it's going to take to follow this through with this. But I'm telling you right now, a fight is coming. And we don't just need our fighters to be prayer warriors, but we need our prayer warriors to be able to fight. And we have to approach this now from a mind, body, spirit point of view. This is a rescue mission. Many people will choose the mark. Many people will choose the beast. Many people will choose the devil because they don't know any better. Because it's the easy way. Because they're told to. Because they don't understand. Because they're afraid. Because they're going along with the crowd. Because they're following a leader. So there has to be an alternative leader. There has to be an alternative following. There has to be an alternative to the mark. There has to be an underground church that doesn't just work spiritually, but works also in the physical realm, not unlike the Underground Railroad, not unlike the French Resistance. You know, the concept of passive ministers who only work in the spirit realm it's going to go the way of the dodo. It's going to go the way of the dinosaur. Because in a world engulfed in war, you have to pick a side. You have to choose a side. Who are you going to fight for? You cannot be neutral when the battle lines are so clearly drawn. When the difference is between those who would kill a baby for the jazz of it, for the kicks of it, for the meanness of it, and those that would give their life to save an innocent child. People that are in between who would sit by with your hands in your pockets and watch a kid drown instead of getting yourself wet and trying to save them. You're on the devil's side. We have no longer any use for you. You need to step up to the plate, join the fight. This is a battle for the future of humanity, a battle between good and evil. It's not a battle between Republicans and Democrats. There are demon Democrats just like there are demon Republicans. There are demon pastors just like there are demon murderers. You understand that the devil has infiltrated all areas of life and a division is coming. A division between sheep and goats, between good and evil, between right and wrong, between those that would help a child and those that would kill a child. In times past, these people have been hidden, the evil ones. They've been hidden, they've been camouflaged, they've been lurking, but now they've risen to power. And they're in control of the highest forces in our government and governments around the world. It's time now for you to wake up and become an active participant in this. You must now put your foot down and choose a side. The middle is no longer a safe place for anyone. And in what is coming, the hot, God wants you hot or He wants you cold. He doesn't want you lukewarm. This lukewarm milquetoast church that's occupying these buildings on Sunday is about to be ran out of business. Not by us, not by the true Christians, not by the activists. They're about to get run out of business by the government. If you don't believe me, watch what's happening right now in Canada. And that's going to spread around the globe as they use whatever ginned up, made up, hyped up event, story, or situation. Whatever they can use to further tighten down the screws of totalitarianism, they will. And it's going to be focused on the church because the church sees itself, the true leaders, the true church, sees itself above the laws of man and government. And we answer to a higher calling and a higher authority. And so that alone is enough to make us targeted in these end times. And so the church will be driven underground, but also the church will emerge underground because the nature of the church will change. No longer will they be preaching sin. They will be preaching, are you a good person or are you a bad person? If you're a good person, then you need to stand up and be counted amongst the good people. That you need to stand up and let your voice be heard. And the minutia of a Christian walk is a thing of the past because there's no time for a Christian walk. It's kind of like how the military changes in peacetime versus war times. In peacetime, historically, the U.S. and other militaries have had flashy uniforms with creases and shiny black shoes. And the conduct is very important. Their paperwork must be all in line. The salutes and the way you address an officer and the discipline and the structure and all of that is extremely important until war breaks out and it all goes out the window. Then they take away the shiny black shoes, and the military, you can study military uniforms. During times of war, they change. By the time of end of World War II, the military uniforms weren't flashy or for parades at all. They looked like you could walk from the parade ground right into the combat zone. You understand? That before, they would only give people commissions if they'd been to West Point or some other military school and had all of the proper backgrounds. But they give you field commissions for producing in the field the results that they want, and they reward you for it. So all of the pomp and circumstance, all of the military structure tends to just go out the window when the war starts and they get serious about the fight. And that's the transformation that's coming to the church. Fancy shoes, pretty dresses, plexiglass pulpits, flowers on the front, big fancy buildings, stained glass windows. It's all gone. I'm announcing it's done. It's all done. The church is going to be transformed now into the end time church. A church without walls. A church where the flowers are the flowers of the spirit of love between the parishioners and the people involved. That the plexiglass pulpit is replaced by a kitchen chair and an old worn Bible. You understand, if you're to survive this thing, you're going to have to get serious about the spiritual part of this war. Bill Cooper, a man I looked up to, one of the founders of the Patriot movement. You guys know who I'm talking about. I believe his name was Bill or William Cooper. I believe he'd been an Arizona State Trooper for many years. And he was a rather big man, carried a big gun. And one time I heard him talking about the role of spirituality in conflict and in a soldier's mind or in a policeman's mind. And he said, I don't care how big you are, how strong you are, how big your gun is, how much training you've got. I don't care how tough you are and how many people look up to you. If you don't have a strong spiritual foundation, if you don't know Jesus, if you don't have a walk with God, if you have not made the decision to follow good and denounce evil, then all of your strength will not serve you at all. All of that big gun you hide behind, you'll put it in your own mouth and pull the trigger without Jesus. That you can't do that job without God. This is the only way you get through what's coming. The only way you're going to get through what's coming is to press in close to God and have a one-on-one personal relationship, an active love affair with Jesus. Anything short of that will shake you loose and cause you to side with the other side and to make a decision that you will regret for all eternity. We're moving away from a church that's a social club. We're moving away from churches that are fashion shows. We're moving away from churches that are just steeped in ritual and no relationship. And we're moving to a church that looks more like the first century church. A scattered church, a church with loose connections, and a church surviving underground, doing ministry one-on-one with people who are in the fight, trying to survive the evil that has taken over the world. The crystal cathedrals will soon be shut down. So God's calling us to build something new. He's calling me to build something new. And I just have to try to wrap my big for a human, but pea-brained brain compared to God. I'm not even a pea-brain compared to God. It's hard for me to wrap my mind around what he's asking me to do and what that's going to look like. And my job is going to be making them to make the choice. You're going, so many people. You know, I made a recent friend and our friendship had to come to an end because this friend can't talk about politics or religion. They have a phobia. I think they're blinded by the God of this world, and they just cannot even open their minds and wrap their mind around what's going on in the world, and they don't want to hear about it. And they claim to be a Christian and say that they were baptized, but there's nothing about their life that would make me think that they are doing the work of the kingdom, that they are doing the work of God. It's these kind of people I'm called to. This is the calling that I'm receiving. Everyone will receive their own calling. God's going to raise up worldly men like me. If you knew the real me and everything about me, you wouldn't like me. I've said this all along. That I got some things that are my own personal business and none of your concern that you would judge me over. But those kind of people are the people that God's drawing up. Because if I were some pasty-faced preacher who'd never sinned, if I'd never seen the inside of a honky-tonk, if I'd never let that armload of women drag me off the stage, you know, if I hadn't lived the crazy wild life of a musician and done all the things I've done, no one could relate to me who has lived a wild, godless life. People who have lived a wild, godless life cannot relate to a preacher who, I have a new friend. I just spoke to him this morning at church. And I made a new friend at church. And this guy, he spent his whole life in that church. Not just in church, but in that church. Went to their church school, graduated from their church school, went to their church seminary, graduated college as a pastor, and then went to work for the church as a pastor. And he was literally a child of the church. But what do you think he's going to do when he's faced with somebody who's really been a bad person, who's really done some awful things, somebody who's really done some stuff that he can't even imagine? How's he going to take that confession? Yes, pasty-faced priests have been running the church for a long time. And yes, they can do the job. They just can't do it fast enough. It reminds me of MASH, when Hawkeye Pierce, the head surgeon in the MASH unit on this television show, was set in Korea. He called what they did there meatball surgery. They weren't there trying to make perfect stitches. They weren't there trying to leave small scars. They were just there trying to save arms and legs, keep people breathing, and get them to the next level. There'll be another church within the church that, within the time we have, will help prepare people who are completely clueless and try to get them more involved and in the body. There will be still a process like that. But it isn't going to look like church to church people. What God's showing me is going to happen. What God's showing me has to happen. Here's the thing. God's not ready to give up on millions of people just because they're ignorant, just because they're lost, just because they're dabbling, just because he's not going to give up good people who might not be able to make the transition without help. You know, signs and wonders and miracles are going to have to show up as well. People aren't going to just listen to me because I sound good. Right? I'm going to have to show them that God is worth worshiping. God is worth serving. Jesus is worth dying for. And more importantly than that, Jesus is worth living for. So you can see with all this on my mind, with all of this cooking, with all of this, the physical transformation, I wish you guys could really see what I see in the mirror anymore. It's ridiculous. People are telling me, stop losing weight. You lost enough. Except for a little bit of saggy skin here and there, I have cut muscles. I mean, it's miraculous. God gave me another war dog. If I wasn't supposed to be in war, why is God sending me war dogs that other people name after war devices? So everybody knows about Radar. Now I got a new dog. His name is 22. And somebody else named him. If somebody gives me another big, heavy bulldog like this and calls him Buckshot, I'm going to know something's up. I don't know if I'm going to be a physical warrior who prays or a prayer warrior who fights. But I do know this, I'm not going to sit on the sideline and eat popcorn. If I was going to sit on the sideline and eat popcorn, God wouldn't have done this to me. God wouldn't have transformed me into some kind of machine overnight. I'm a fighting machine. I'm not sounding arrogant at all. I was always an athlete underneath a whole lot of fat, and just the fat's gone. The 100 pounds I've lost now, I could carry in a backpack or on steel plates or in my hands. I could carry 100 pounds and still just be walking like I was walking before when I weighed 100 pounds more. You understand that I can now travel and walk around as good as I did back then with a 100-pound load. That's hard to imagine. But as you can see, lots been going on with me, and I've been seeking God. I've been seeking God about what's next, and I don't know the role the channel's going to play in it. You know, if you don't know what to do, I just freeze. I just tend to freeze and figure it out. And so this is why I'm not doing a lot with the channel. Not to mention, I think they're using social media to set up attack squads and set up hit lists, and they're gathering names, and the more discreet I can be right now, probably the better. But not that I'm worried. You know, what God ordains, he sustains, and if he called me to this thing, it's going to happen. You know, there's a youth pastor that is here locally, and he said that God told him his youth group was going to explode, right? And so as soon as the service was over, I ran straight to this guy, and I'm like, okay, remember me? And he goes, yeah, you're that youth pastor guy. I used to be a youth pastor. And I said, well, you know, I started with 3 kids, and the net result was 100 times what I've started with. And it all started when God told me my youth group was going to explode. Expect an explosion in my youth group. And I said, so when God told me that, I changed my youth group's name to Kingdom Explosion Youth Group. And when I did that, it started a chain reaction of events that led to 100-fold, 100 times the number of kids I started with. From 3 kids to 300 kids. And that's conservative. That's just rounded. It's probably more than that. I mean, because kids come and go. I probably reached thousands of kids in that 4 or 5 year period, 4-year period there. So, but I went and told this youth pastor, I said, if God told you explosion, you better expect explosion. You better be ready for an explosion. And for me, it was 100 times what I started with. So there's going to be an explosion in evangelism. And it's going to be non-traditional evangelism. We aren't trying to make them all look like Billy Graham. We're not trying to make them all dress in suits and wear white shirts and shiny shoes. We're not trying to get them to give up all of their bad behavior, right? We just want them to denounce the devil and accept Jesus. This is it. This is what I'm trying to get all you Christians to realize. There's one goal and one goal only in this end time final days underground church. And that's to dunk as many people as possible. Man, we got to get them to say no to the devil and yes to Jesus and let God work out the details. So I'm asking y'all for your prayers. I'm asking y'all for your financial support. I don't ask for that very often. I don't come right at you and ask a pointed thing. But I got about 2 weeks worth of living left financially. I'm good for about 2 weeks. and then my electricity's gone, and I'm living off the solar panels, and I've been eating a little while already from my long-term storage foods. So God's going to work it all out. It's a matter of faith. I do have the shotgun shack in Texas, and it has to be sold or moved. I don't have the money to move it. I don't really need it here as far as I can tell, and everything in me is saying, sell it. Use the money to launch this new ministry. Use the money to put off going back to work full-time as long as you can. So I'm asking you if you would like to purchase the Texas Shotgun Shack. I lived in it for a little more than a year. And it's basically just an empty shell, except I have a framed in 6 foot by 3 foot bathroom, and I have and it's insulated. It's 9/10 of the way insulated in the walls, and part of the ceiling's insulated. So it's I put a little more money in it than I paid for it, but I have about $11,000 in it total, and I'm going to sell it for whatever I can get out of it, and I'm going to take the money from that, and I'm going to use it to probably maybe work on either more video studio equipment. But I also need to live off the money for a minute while I figure out exactly what it is I'm going to be doing with this new ministry. And so once again, what God ordains, he sustains. So God's called me to this, so I know he's going to provide for this. And he'll probably use some of you to provide for this ministry. So I know money's tight. Don't give unless you can. If it's, I don't want you to short yourself on what you need. But if you can contribute to this and this vision, which I know is vague right now, and it'll get more clear as time goes on. But that's a big reason why I took this long break, is I've got to figure out all the details. I'm spending a lot of time just trying to interpret what it is God wants me to do specifically and in detail. I mean, I have a general vision. It really is a lifeboat, and I'm just going through the wreckage of this world, trying to pull as many people into the lifeboat before they perish, because this ship is going down. America is a wreck, and it's not just America; it's the whole world. And you know it. You know it in your heart. We're in the end times. If you want to help my end time ministry, help launch this new beginning, then I need your prayers. Primarily, before I need your money, I need your prayers, because if you're praying for me, the money will come. The money will come if you guys are supporting me spiritually. So that I covet more than anything. And I'm just, I don't worry about money. God just seems to take care of it. If you want to purchase the Shotgun Shack from me, and I'm going to take the best offer, and it has to be moved, and you'll have to pay for the moving. The good news is, it's the biggest tiny home one can move without a permit in the state of Texas. So all you'll need is a flatbed, tilt back, wrecker truck, like they pick up your car with when they put it up on the ramp and pull it up. They do the same thing with the house, and then they just take it and set it down wherever you want it. I got the blocks and the tie downs that go with it. And, it's wired for electricity, has a breaker box. So really, if you need a storage unit, if you need a mother-in-law house, it's ready to go. It's ready for you're down the road a little bit. And even though I have 11,000 in this, I haven't checked, but when I bought it for 11 included the transportation and the blocks and the work, the installation and stuff I put into it. I think the asking price was $8,000 plus tax. I think, if I recall, that's what I paid for it. But that's back when a 2x4 was $3-4 instead of $8 or $9. So I don't know how much to ask for this. I do know that if it's a viewer, somebody's just going to write a check for me. If a viewer is supposed to have it, they're just gonna give me whatever God tells them to give me, right? The steps of a righteous man are ordered by God, and although I'm not righteous, I'm covered in Jesus's righteousness, which makes me pretty righteous because of him. So I can expect my steps to be ordered by God. So what's going to happen next? I don't know, but God does. I do know that God told me to ask my viewers for help, to ask you to ask you to buy the Shotgun Shack in Texas, the tiny home there, to ask you to donate, to ask you to pray for me, to ask you to give me confirmation. If God tells you Tell Sage he's on the right track. I need that too, because trust me, it's a big deal, man. It's a big deal. I do not take the yoke of ministry lightly. You know that. It's why I walked away from it. It's hard. It's really hard. And don't do it unless you're going to do it right. And this is going to be hard because I'm going to be getting fought by my own people, because the thing I'm doing, they are not going to like that I'm going to be out there baptizing homosexuals and drug addicts. They're just not going to like it. You may not like it. If you don't, I'm not the right guy for you anymore. And watch my old videos, but see ya. Because God doesn't really care how these people are living right now. He just cares about the final destination of their soul. You understand that this is a time now to say yes to God and no to the devil. It's your last chance. It's everybody's last chance, right? And Christians are going to hate this because, and I'm going to remind you of a parable. The parable was the vineyard owner who hired a bunch of laborers for the day for a set price. Let's say he was going to pay them $100 a piece for the day. They worked all day long, and in the last hour of the day, a handful of workers show up and pitch in too, and they only worked for the last hour, and they also got paid $100. This parable represents the time we're in right now. Many of you have served God for your whole life. Many of you have worked diligently to conquer every demonic hold in your life, every hold of sin. You've worked to purify yourself. You have worked and dedicated yourself to becoming the best Christian you can be. And there's a part of you, though, that feels like because you did those things, you've earned your right to heaven. I can't be clearer when I say this. You can't earn your right to heaven. It's a free gift or it's nothing. You understand? You can't buy your way into heaven with good deeds. You just can't. Please stop trying. You either do that because you're trying to please God, or don't do it. You're not going to get it to obtain a higher level of salvation than the rest of us. You understand? And many of you are going to be really upset when here at the last minute, the crack dealer gives his heart to Jesus. You're going to be upset. You shouldn't be, but you will. The Bible tells us you will. The parable tells us that you will. That you will not understand that they deserve the same payment that you do, even though they're brand new, even though they're still covered in filth, even though they're still struggling with Christian thoughts and Christian thinking and righteous ways. You understand? And it's not that God doesn't care about that. It's that time is past. The end time underground church is going to be a meatball surgery MASH unit for the sick and dying. You understand? It's going to be, let's save their leg and we'll not worry about their fingers. You know? I mean, we're trying to stop the bleeding, fill the lifeboat. We need to harvest people into God's kingdom. All right. We'll see you next time. Leave your comments in the comments section. You can support this channel at P.O. Box 92, Sparks, Oklahoma, 74869. P.O. Box 92, Sparks, Oklahoma, 74869. God help us all.